But the little kid on the corner that sold a dime bag, he might be in jail right now. He might be in some sort of crazy boot camp or something like that the state's making money off of, putting as many of those people away as possible. I want you to Google that when you get home. Google that, Wachovia, drug money, laundering. It went on for years, years. But remember, those big corporations spend a lot of money on advertising. So when you start to Google it, you might only find a couple of sentences. Most of the stories written about it were actually in foreign press. You'd have to get it from Reuters to understand it. I mean, think about this. It's completely upside down. You go into a liquor store and you rob it for $100. But if you steal somebody's pension money, you get off scot-free. See, Bernie Madoff made a big mistake. And you want to know what his big mistake was? He stole money from rich people. See, you go to jail and you steal money from rich people. But if you rip off the average customer, they tend to find ways of getting out of it. We've got a legal system for you. Some of the corporations now actually have legal defense funds so that even if their corporate executives do things wrong, the company itself pays for their defense. Now the MF Global that went under, I don't know if you saw that, that was another great thing. But when MF Global went under, that was 9% of the U.S. commodities market. And John Corzine says he doesn't know where the money went. Well, of course they know where it went. It went to J.P. Morgan. No big surprises. But I want you to think about this for a second. There's two main theories that are going on today. There's freedom, and this is what the libertarians offer. And then there's control. And this is what Republicans and Democrats are offering. See, they just taint it in a different way. So think about it to yourself for a moment. Right now, the biggest battle that's going on is going on the internet. And the government and the governments of the world are paranoid about this. Because no longer can they control things. Now remember, just 7 corporations control 95% of the TV content that you watch right now. 95%. So what happens if you come out with a view that maybe might not be good for one of their sponsors? You think that's going to get covered? See, because certainly nothing that'll happen with a big bank is really going to get as much coverage as if it was your local bank. See, I bet if your local bank was laundering drug money, that would be all over the place. But when you have a Citi, you have a J.P. Morgan, these companies have trillions of dollars in derivatives exposure. You know how big $1 trillion is? The answer is you can't. It's that big. This is like trips to the sun and the moon and the stars. Talk of a type of distance here when we talk about numbers. But the system itself does not want this. It needs to control, and their paranoia is about the internet. And this is why I'm so excited about this. Because people are waking up to it. When the government lies to you about something, you want to know what you can do right now? You can blog. You can find somebody who lives in Fukushima and find out what are the radiation levels, even though our government raised the radiation levels that were acceptable now. See, so before it was unacceptable, and now we've been hit with some radiation from Japan, well, now it's acceptable. We raised the level. Don't panic. Nothing to worry about. So, but you can have this ability now, and this is so incredible. I remember back in the old days, I'm dating myself, but I used to have to go to the library to do research, to look things up, to check on them. And I came to this conclusion a long time ago. I don't trust anything that the government tells me. And I'm going to check them. 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 Because the reason is, usually at the end of the day, you probably will have some vested interest trying to protect themselves. Now, usually most laws go into effect specifically to help or deal with the problem. But then what happens is, later on, they start to get perverted. Usually a lot of laws that start to go into place in the end times are to protect entrenched businesses from competition. You know, Glass-Steagall and stuff does not protect the individual consumer. It entrenches the large banks in the positions that they're in. I mean, I can clear up the entire financial situation with just 3 things. And it'll cost no money. Now just think about this. Are you ready? You go into a bank, and on the bottom of every bank it says FDIC insurance. What would happen if when you went into that bank, it also said, this bank is using 17% leverage on their assets. And the one across the street says, we're using 13% leverage. See, if you required every bank to post the amount of leverage that they're using, the consumer, without any extra laws here, would make their own decision based on being fully informed. Also, right below that, we would have another category, and that would be, this is how much derivative exposure our bank has. And this is what I can tell you. Your community bank, your small to medium-sized banks, they don't have any derivative exposure. The largest banks in the United States have over $220 trillion worth of derivatives outstanding right now. Now look, I'm not going to tell banks to not do that. But what I am telling them is, if they want to do derivative exposure, that little part on the bank that says FDIC insurance, that goes away. Now you as a consumer can make an informed decision. What you would say to yourself is, I'm going to put it in that bank, they might give me some higher interest, and I will live with the risks of having that derivative exposure and that leverage ratio. Or you could say, well, I'm not going to have any part of that, and do the opposite. But this is what they want to do. I mean, just to give you an idea how crazy this is, let's take the Food and Drug Administration. You have right now the FDA saying it's okay to have this pink slime food that's going in children's lunches. But right now in the state of California, there's a person under arrest because a group of people got together and wanted to buy unpasteurized milk. Something is definitely wrong. So the solution to most of these problems that we're seeing here is about giving people their power back to make decisions. And the only way you can achieve this power is with full disclosure and sunlight. Now I'm very excited about this thing with the young people. We have this whole thing, remember I learned in school about Keynesian and Austrian economics came later. Well now, some of these schools are actually teaching classes in Austrian economics. And people like Van Mies and Hayek are people that are on their tongues. It's not just, you know, Adam Smith and other people. But I think that the great thing about it is the awareness level as a brand is starting to grow. Years ago, and I don't know how, I can't see everyone in this audience, but I'm sure if you said libertarian years ago, nobody knew what it was, but people are starting to learn that, and that's where this momentum is growing. And it's causing a change. So now when you put on your Facebook page that you're a libertarian, or you say to somebody, I'm fiscally conservative, but I'm socially liberal, and then they go, hey, that means you're a libertarian. See, they're starting to put two and two together. And they're understanding. It's becoming more known. I mean, Vince Vaughn announces it at one of the speeches for Ron Paul. You have Drew Carey on TV. You have Clint Eastwood basically telling you he's a libertarian. You know, it's not just that. It's starting to filter out over and over and over again. What happens is it's not like just being a small kid. I mean, I kind of sometimes equate it to being like someone years ago who used to be gay, who lived in the closet. Well, nowadays, we don't have to be in the closet anymore. We can express our views. And the thing is, people realize we're right. See, because when they sit there every day and look at the amount of debt, they realize the FDA controlling their lives, telling them what they can eat and not eat. When you have something like private property being taken by our own government because you don't pay as much taxes as the business that's going to take your home. Did anybody know they hear about the Kelo decision? Very famous. Well, basically a whole bunch of people got their houses taken because Pfizer wanted to take their property and pay more. So the court decided, well, if somebody can pay more in taxes, it has nothing to do with the public good. The public good now is just about who pays more money to the town. The irony of the whole situation is that Pfizer backed out of the entire deal, so now the town's completely screwed. They're not getting money that they wanted before. But think about something as simple as surveillance. And I want you to be really mindful of this, okay? The TSA has caught zero, let me say this again, zero terrorists. Zero. And this past week they announced that they're going to probably start putting some of these TSA agents on buses in the Houston area as an experiment. You feel safer? See, the funny thing is, you want to know who stopped a lot of these things? It was just a normal person on the street going to the local cop saying, hey, that doesn't look right. The Times Square bomber was just a bunch of guys that worked down there saying, hey, that truck doesn't look right. Now remember, they've installed thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cameras across the United States. So the real question is, what are they hoping to do? They just want to monitor you. You want to know how much the government wants to monitor you? I'm going to tell you. Right now there's a facility outside of Salt Lake City. Gigantic complex that the government spent billions of dollars on. That according to Wired Magazine and a few other sources say that they're going to be able to go through every encrypted email that you send. They're going to monitor everything you do online. Everything. But of course you trust them, right? Because they're always going to do the right thing. I mean, they've really taken care of the budget, and they would never get us into any wars. that weren't there, because I mean, they were right about those weapons of mass destruction. The governments have a history of taking care of one thing, and that's the government. So as a vigilant person, my thought process is, I don't want to give them any more control than they possibly can have. I'm not saying we don't need government, okay? What people will try to do is try to label you as an anarchist. We're not saying that as libertarians. We're just saying we want to lower the amount of government intrusion into our lives. Because just like me sitting here, I can't tell you what's good for your life. You can't tell me what's good for mine. But there are a whole bunch of people, when they go to Washington, D.C., they all decide that they know what's best for you. At the end of the day, I just want to point out a couple of things. The Republicans and Democrats, despite what they say, they're in favor of secrets. Libertarians are not. Republicans and Democrats want to track every move you make. We don't. Republicans and Democrats want you to spend your life and your children's future paying for failed attempts of social engineering. We don't. And at the end, we want to give you your freedom back, something both parties don't. So this November, when you go into that voting booth and you're sitting there thinking about what to do, you've already wasted your vote for maybe the most big part of your lives. You tried one party, you tried the other. Be consistent. Believe with your heart what's right, and don't let anybody change your mind. Thank you.
Michael, I told you to be a great spokesman for the Libertarian Party, and we're going to have another great spokesman for the Libertarian Party coming up, the next speaker. But first, we're going to show a quick video of John Adams' Let Me Have a Free Country. So, in a moment, Ken Clarkchuck will be up, and enjoy the video. Beautiful. Thank you.
President recognizes Mr. Adams, Massachusetts.
Objects of the most